Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is David Quadrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial. Shout out to Ian McIntyre. For some reason, and I don't like it. I sent Ian a nice text as well. I'll say this right off the top. I was texting with iMac this morning. There's like this misguided anger at Ian McIntyre for this Q&A with Jim Rutherford. And I'm not getting into any specifics of what I texted Ian, but like, we should all be thankful, not necessarily to Ian, but that these quotes, A, are coming out from Rutherford, and B, the reaction. Like, that's what you want. And I know the Canucks might not love the reaction, that it's mainly negative and not liking what Jim Rutherford had to say. I'm thrilled that there's that much of a reaction, especially with the content that Jim Rutherford, what he actually had to say, that there's that much of a reaction. You don't want apathy. We say it all the time. You don't want apathy. And although we seem to be pretty close to that line sometimes, the reaction today to what Jim Rutherford had to say, that's exactly, well, not exactly, but it's what we want to see. You want people to react. You want people to care about what you're doing. So shout out to iMac for getting that out there. I don't know. I just wanted to say that right off.
He's just delivering the message. He's just
He's
conducting
delivering
the
the
interview.
message. Yeah, it's a Q&A. iMac's not going to, all right, here's what I think about this. It's a Q&A. It's a Q&A, folks. Relax. So if you're out there, shooting at Ian McIntyre, give your head a shake.
Are we gonna dive into this off the top, or are we gonna talk about the game right off the top? We gotta pick a lane here.
Okay. Okay, let's get into the game. Because what do you want to say about the game? What do we have to say about the game? I'm gonna talk some stuff about the game and last night's game. Good NHL slate last night. I'm gonna talk about the last night's games and anyone else. But you're right. Canucks are in Carolina today. I'll say this right off the top. If you want to make sure your question or comment, and I think there's going to be a lot of them today, gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. All right, so Canucks in Carolina. You heard from us yesterday that Quinn Hughes was absent from practice, as was Drew O'Connor. Quinn Hughes, a game-time decision with an undisclosed injury. Again, you wonder about the arm, the shoulder, the wrist, whatever it was after he got tangled up with Mark Scheifele. But he was on the ice today, officially a game-time decision for tonight's game.
If he doesn't draw in, this will be an interesting litmus test of how much offense the Canucks can create without Quinn Hughes, where the last several games since November 1st, the Canucks have actually been one of the top teams in the league at generating shots offensively. Now, they've given up way too much defensively, but it's at least encouraging that they have been producing a lot of chances, even in that Winnipeg game, that Colorado game. Now, I think a large part of it is Hughes, since coming back from his injury, has been playing at an elite level. And if he isn't in the lineup against a very stout Carolina team, then I'm not expecting them to necessarily create a lot, but can they still find ways to spend meaningful time in the attacking zone to still control 5-on-5 play? Because that loss against the Jets was really a loss because of your PK. That was the difference. The 2 goals that you surrendered shorthanded at 5-on-5, they were matching the Jets well. And now it's worth taking those results with a grain of salt because the Jets at 5-on-5 haven't been a very good team this year. They were without Dylan Sandberg, and the Jets last night against the Seattle Kraken had another rough go of it. But we'll see. If Quinn does not go, then do they all of a sudden get hemmed in for most of the game at 5-on-5, or do they still find ways to fight back and at least hang around? That's going to be interesting to watch.
Another part that's interesting in all of this is if Quinn doesn't play, and we're not going to spend too much time talking about that because the game starts in 2 hours, so he might be playing by the time people are even listening to this. How are they going to go with the defense? Moments before the show went live today, the Canucks officially announced Thatcher Demko to IR and that Victor Mancini had been activated from injured reserve. Mancini participated in a practice back in Vancouver as a full participant. He was also a full participant in yesterday's practice, but he skated as an extra. It was P.O. Joseph who skated with Philip Hronek. So, how will the Canucks form their defense pairings tonight if Quinn isn't in? It's going to be really interesting to see. Again, if you want those lefty righties, P.O. Joseph's going to be in your lineup instead of Victor Mancini. I don't even want to sit here and be like, what would you do? Because I think, do we both agree you wouldn't have P.O. Joseph in the lineup?
Yeah, but I also don't think Victor Mancini's been very good when he has played this year, and I think it's a negligible difference. Now, because Mancini's younger and you maybe want to see what you have in him, I'm sure the fan base would rather see him.
That's where I'm landing.
Yeah, and with Joseph, there's zero excitement level, right? You know what he is. He's a journeyman number 8 defenseman. But if we're being honest, whether it's Joseph in the lineup or Mancini, neither one of them has been a difference maker on the bottom pair when they have drawn into the lineup this year.
Awesome. Great stuff, Arm. Okay.
No Jacob Slavin for the Canes. They've
Jacob Slavin
banged up. No Jalen Chatfield either. So this is a Canes blue line that you're gonna see names like Quads. You ever heard of Nystrom? Joel Nystrom?
No. Oh, the guy. Yep. Winnipeg Jets. I remember him. Yep.
Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, in the preseason, dude was on fire. Or no, Seattle. My bad. Seattle.
He's on the Canes.
Oh. Well, who's the winger I'm thinking of?
You're thinking of Yanni Newman.
Oh, same thing.
No.
No, so this is a test. Okay, you failed the test. This is another.
Okay, give me another one. Give me another one.
Another one? Well, okay. Now, so the Canes are even more banged up on the back end when they had Keandre Miller out and Shane Goss to spare. So now that they've at least got those bodies out or bodies back, now there aren't as many who the hell is this guy moments that I think you're gonna have. The other guy in there right now is Mike Riley, but I feel like he's played enough.
I remember him. Yeah,
he's played enough that you would know him. But there was one point when they had Dominic Fensore, and I want to look up exactly how tall he is because I'm pretty sure this guy is 5'7" as a defenseman. Okay, he's listed at 5'9", but that's very generous.
That's generous.
Very generous. One of the tiniest defensemen I've ever seen play in the NHL.
Is he Italian? How do you spell that last name?
Fensore.
Yeah, he's Italian from the Bronx.
Okay, so he's short, but he's feisty.
Yeah, he's a good puck mover, but
is he playing
really
today?
defend. He's not playing. He's not playing.
Oh, damn it!
He played one game.
I'll still watch the game.
But
where were we going with this?
Point being, the Canes are a little bit banged up on the blue line, so you might have a little bit more time and space to create offensively because, hey, when Jacob Slavin is in the lineup, there's just how quickly he gets on top of guys in the neutral zone, how quickly he gaps up and just eliminates plays. He is the best pure shutdown defenseman in the NHL. So the Canucks are catching a break from that perspective. The other interesting note on Carolina this year, you've got a fun new dynamic second line. I remember the conversations we had last year in the playoffs about how boring the Canes are to watch. Not criticizing the effectiveness of their playing style, but just, man, they just pump pucks out to the neutral zone. They win those battles, dump and chase, work it low to high, spam point shots, just forecheck and pressure everywhere. They suck the oxygen out of games, but this new second line that they have has been so much fun to watch, and they've added a dynamic gear attacking off the rush. So they've shifted Logan Stankoven into center, which I think is an underrated storyline around the NHL. How long have the Hurricanes been searching for a second line center? And Stankoven, who was drafted as a natural center, but had played exclusively on the wing up until this season, has successfully been playing as Carolina's 2C. And then you got Nick Ehlers, offseason signing, and then Jackson Blake, who I believe has 12 points in his first 16 games. All three of those guys are just burners to the neutral zone. They create so many controlled entries. They play off of each other so well. And it's added a high octane element to Carolina's top six that they previously didn't have. And that's going to be something the Canucks are going to have to contest with, considering all year they've been bleeding a lot of chances against.
All right, so on the Canucks side, Kevin Lankinen starts in goal. We're curious if we're going to see Yuri Patera. Maybe we'll talk about that and anyone else. I feel like we kind of talked about it yesterday. I'm going to be honest, this is the first Canes game I think I've watched this year. This is going to be the first Canes game that I've watched this season, I think. Honestly, I think I've done a good job of seeing like every team play a game, but I don't think I've watched a single Canes game. Based on what you were saying, it sounds like you have.
Yeah, I've watched a few Canes games this year. They aren't as... I remember watching a game against Vegas maybe a week and a half ago as well, when they were in the heat of not having half their defense. I think I also watched a game they had against Colorado. Was the most fun regular season game I think I've ever watched in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Canes Colorado from 2.5 weeks ago, I want to say. They've been more fun to watch this year, Carolina. They're not obviously as tight defensively as they are when Slavin's in the lineup and when everyone's healthy, but it's not as if the bottom has fallen out for them just because they're missing Slavin and Chatfield.
I was going through the NHL standings and trying to figure out like who I've watched a shockingly low amount. I haven't watched a single Canes game, and reading through the standings, I think that's the only team. Oh no, I have watched. Okay, I haven't watched a single Canes game, but I've watched a shockingly little amount of the Vegas Golden Knights. Like I don't think I've watched a full Vegas Golden Knights game this season.
They're fun. My friend was really upset last night because his fantasy hockey team had Eichel on it, Barbashev. He had like 3 or 4 Golden Knights players, and he was just raging that they lost that game and that none of those top guys picked up points. But that top line with Eichel and Barbashev, it just felt like a cheat code. And Marner's been great too, but Eichel is the main driver of that line. One of the best first lines in the NHL. Their power play was cooking early in the year, has slowed down since Mark Stone got injured, but they're a wagon. They're one of the top cup contenders this year.
Did you see the clip, the stand-up comedy clip where Riley Smith was in the crowd?
Yeah, I saw that.
That was great. That was really good. I just wanted to bring that up because Riley Smith scored last night, so it reminded me. All right, transcendent analysis. Like I said, Kevin Lankinen in goal. Excuse me. Kevin Lankinen in goal for the Canucks tonight. Game starts pretty soon. We're not going to spend too much time talking about it. Let's get into these Rutherford quotes. Let's do it. Our next segment is a presentation of our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. That includes today, folks. You get off work, head on over to Greta. You can skip the line and not have to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. With the arcade, bar, and street food menu, Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the big game. All right. Oh, yeah. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Okay, where do we begin? I said off the top, Ian McIntyre, shout out to IMAC, did a Q&A with Canucks President of Hockey Operations, Jim Rutherford. And there's a few things to get to, but we're going to focus on the rebuilding part of it all. I think that's where most people are immediately going with this. So let me just open the article. Jacob, I put a bunch of screenshots in there. You just flash them up on the screen as I go. I'm just going to go through this. Let's start, Harm, with the spoiler alert that IMAC wrote at the top of the article. Okay. He wrote, Rutherford believes he has the authority to conduct a rebuild, but has no plans for one. And that's whether Quinn Hughes stays or not. The kicker, the quote, I think the quote that stands out the most is the one where he does the, well, rebuilds don't always work. I want to read it in full. Rebuilds can work, but you have to understand rebuilds take a long time. We spent a whole show earlier this week talking about how it doesn't have to for this team. Then he says there has to be a lot of patience, and for the teams that take the biggest jump and ultimately rebuild and win a cup, they usually have a first overall pick, and you still have to get lucky on that. I'm not naming teams, but some have tried to rebuild and had a ton of draft picks that didn't turn out. So a rebuild is not something that we're going to look at doing. Like I said, we're in transition, but we're not trading all these players for draft picks that may or may not end up playing someday. Now, naturally, that brought a few people. I think Jason Bruff was the first person I saw that tweeted out, was the quote from Jim Benning in 2017, where Benning basically said the exact same thing, that teams that have had 3, 4, or 5 top 5 picks, it still doesn't work out for them. This sounds a lot like Jim Rutherford today in 2025, Harm.
Well, the question is, if Quinn is gone, what are you even building around? A $50.11.6 million center? A goalie who can't stay healthy more than 10 games? What is there to build around? And yes, the Canucks have some young players in the system, but so do most other teams in the NHL. As much as I like Braden Coots, Tom Verlander, Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, DPD, they're good prospects, but none of them project as stars. And you need stars to win in the NHL. If you lose Quinn Hughes, you have no star power. And that immediately caps your ceiling in my mind. And for context around, all right, how much young talent do the Canucks have in their pipeline? This past summer, Corey Pronman in August, I believe, did his annual pipeline rankings where he looks at every organization system of U23 players. And this includes current NHL players and prospects. So for instance, if you have a 22-year-old that's already in the NHL, he's going to count as part of your pipeline. And the premise is just how much young talent do teams have. Corey noted that he likes Coots, he likes Verlander, etc., but the Canucks ultimately ranked 22nd in those pipeline rankings. So this isn't a group of young players where you look at it and go, you have the building blocks in place where you have a future 1C, where you have a future 1D, where you have your elite starting goaltender. They have some pieces, but relative to the rest of the league, it's an unspectacular group. And even then, just naming 4 or 5 prospects, that doesn't mean you're anywhere close to contending. The same way that just naming 4 or 5 good players on your current NHL team doesn't mean you're anywhere close to being a good team. Every team has good players. Every team has at least a few decent prospects. And ultimately, it feels like we're back at square one. The same conversations we were having a decade ago with respect to, like, you know what it reminds me of? It's like when someone has a goal of getting in shape and they think about how long it's going to take to get in shape. It's like saying, well, instead of doing the hard work to get the payoff, let me half-ass it by training once in a while, but also having a crappy diet. Well, the result is you're going to spin your wheels. The time is going to pass regardless, right? The years that it takes to, whether it's going to be a rebuild or retool, the years are going to pass without winning hockey, without contending for a cup, regardless. So why not just do the hard work so that years from now, you actually do have a team that can contend for a Stanley Cup, as opposed to going down this path, which I think guarantees mediocrity.
And I think that's the big conversation, is all we're talking about is just increasing the number of young players that you're so excited about. Like, they're so excited about these young players. They didn't trade the Braden Coots pick for immediate help. They didn't do that, and they could have. And I gave them their flowers for not doing that. But you need more of that. You need more of that discipline when it comes to, okay, we're going to load up on some young players here, but you got to get those at the top of the draft. So it's going to require not trying to, and I mean, maybe it's not going to require trying to compete, because they were trying to compete this year and look where they are in the standings today. Now, it should also be mentioned, the NHL standings are very close. Like, if they win 2 games, all of a sudden they're a playoff team. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very close right now. So that's worth mentioning as well. And I understand when Rutherford says something like, we're just going to get healthy. And this is, I think, a quote that we should read, is kind of, so what's the plan is basically what
it was maybe what's the best case scenario?
Yeah, let's start there. He said, so what's the best case scenario? Rutherford said, the best case scenario is we get our players back. We stick with the priority we've had for 6 months to get another center, and then see where we're at. Take a run at making the playoffs. And if you get in the playoffs, you just never know. I have a lot of respect for Jim Rutherford, which I've said a few times. dude's won 3 cups, so he's not Jim betting. Let me make that clear. But man, that's a Jim betting quote.
Yeah, and what I do, at least the only, I think, clear positive from that interview in my mind was Rutherford making it pretty clear that they're not going to look at band-aid solutions for improving this team. They're not going to trade away their top prospects. And he acknowledged at one point in that interview that, hey, this year's draft is pretty good. So it seems at least they're aware. And even the next answer of and if it doesn't work, Rutherford mentions this is the answer, then the downside of it is stay the course, stick with what I just said, and we miss the playoffs. So we win the lottery at a top 5 pick and keep building a team that is relatively young, where most of our players are in their 20s. So internally, it seems they're at least aware that if things continue going down this road, they can't stay healthy, their players don't perform up to expectation. This sounds like a president of hockey ops that's well aware that they could also just be picking top 5 in this year's draft.
Now, isn't that also kind of what, like, his answer there? That's kind of what we're asking for here when we talk about a rebuild, right? Like, that's kind of what we're talking about, is like, just be bad for a season or two. Now, obviously, that answer from Rutherford doesn't also say, oh yeah, and then we'll take a step back for next year, which I think is what we're talking about. But all we're saying is, immediately right now, don't trade your way out of this, which, like you said, kudos to Rutherford, doesn't sound like they're going to. And B, just be okay with being bad. Like, trade Kiefer Sherwood at the deadline, see what you can get for Drew O'Connor, move the other guys at the deadline, anyone you can, really, anyone you can move at the deadline. Obviously, you hope Quinn Hughes resigns, but just be okay with the top 5 pick for this year. Just see how that goes. See what it's like to draft in the top 5 in what Rutherford addressed as a deep draft.
Yes, but also one top 5 pick isn't going to rescue you.
I agree.
So like, that's where it has to be an organizational multi-year commitment to accumulating assets. Again, if Quinn Hughes decides that he doesn't want to stay long-term, which was the original premise of the question anyway.
And you know what, Harm? You're right. And I should check myself, because like, accidentally being bad and drafting high, that was what the last regime did.
That's
how you got Quinn Hughes. That's how you got Elias Pettersson. And you're right, it's not the same thing. That's the crazy thing. You have the best defenseman in Canucks history, and it wasn't enough. Like, it wasn't enough because you needed to do so much more.
Well, you know what? That might, if you're a Canucks fan and you're seeing these quotes, the best case scenario might be, all right, again, if there's this scenario where Quinn doesn't stay long-term, a post-Quinn Hughes Canucks future, my original point of what are you even building around? What pieces do you even have to be competitive? Your hope might shift to, even if this organization wants to stay competitive, that they're just so bad and have such little top-end talent that they are unintentionally bad, not just this year, but in the years moving forward, and that they then, like the Benning era, still keep getting those year in, year out top 10 picks, hit on some of those guys. Because keep this in mind, the Benning era it wasn't just that the Benning era failed once because they took a shortcut. They actually had multiple outs. They had multiple scenarios where they accidentally ended up in a pretty good scenario because they were bad. Nailed some of those picks, not all of them. And all right, you had Hughes, Pettersson, Horvat, Besser, Miller coming off the bubble run, for example. There was so much potential for what this team could be, and then that's where they shot themselves in the foot by letting all their free agents go, by re-signing Jake Virtanen, by not buying out Brandon Sutter. They just completely turned the taps off. So that was like, even acknowledging all the mistakes they made in the early part of Benning's tenure, if just like coming off the bubble, even while acknowledging that they had some luck go into them going as deep as they did, they were still in a salvageable situation. And then even after the all-Canadian 56-game COVID year, where they finished last in the division, they still had a path to pretty quickly being a competitive team that could be in the playoff race perennially. But then that's where they made the OEL trade, right? If you had just not made the OEL trade, you could have still, even from that point, someone taking over at the end of the 2021 season could have still managed them the right way and made it so that they were a cup contender today. I truly believe that. So if you're a Canucks fan and you're panicking seeing these and it's upsetting you, I understand that. And your best hope might just be that if, again, this is all under the premise of if the Canucks don't have Quinn Hughes long term, but if that scenario unfolds, your hope probably is then that no matter what the organization's desire is as far as short-term competitiveness, that they're still so bad in a world without Quinn Hughes. Because, I mean, they're bottom 5 in the NHL right now with him in the lineup. Now imagine without him. So you just have to hope that they're unintentionally bad for years to come, and then we'll see from that point onward.
So Rutherford's asked, but not a full rebuild after the quote Harman read about 10 minutes ago. This is what Rutherford said. He said, rebuilds can work, but you have to understand rebuilds take a long time. There has to be a lot of patience. And for the teams that take the biggest jump and ultimately rebuild and win a cup, did I already read this? Whatever. They usually have a first overall pick, and you still have to get lucky on that. Again, I'm not naming teams. I did read this. But some have tried to rebuild, had a ton of draft picks, didn't turn out. We had someone also bring up the Buffalo Sabres in the chat. You can't ignore all of the samples of successful rebuilds. And again, like these people in the chat being like, well, rebuilds don't work because the Leafs haven't won a cup, or rebuilds don't work because the Oilers haven't won a cup. I'm sorry, one team wins the cup every year. You put yourself in the best position to win a Stanley Cup by doing the hard work, by doing the rebuild, by going out and being bad for a few years. The Canucks had all the pain of the rebuild, and they're not in the conversation for the playoffs every year. Despite what you might hear around this market, from me included, I was super high on this team heading into this year. This is what we need to keep repeating, is that you don't get to say, oh, rebuilds don't work because the Leafs haven't won a cup. Rebuilds don't work because the Oilers haven't won a cup. That is so intellectually dishonest, and it's not what we're talking about. Like, you put yourself in the best chance to win a cup by being at the top of the league standings every year. And those teams I mentioned, they're at the top of the league standings every single year.
Yeah, and even the Sabres example, it's not that they missed on their top picks. They still ended up with franchise pillars like Eichel, Reinhart, Dahlin, but they were managed horribly, had the worst ownership group in the NHL, and then traded away Jack Eichel, traded away Sam Reinhart. They were just horribly managed. It wasn't that their initial teardown idea was bad. They just were clueless in building things back up. And ask Sabres fans what they think about Kevin Adams right now. So, and then you just look around the NHL, look at how many of the teams that went through a rebuild are showing a lot of progress this year. Montreal, Detroit, in the West, you're seeing Utah, you're seeing Anaheim, the Sharks, the Blackhawks. This isn't a great time to be trying to make the case that rebuilds don't work, because a lot of these teams are passing the Canucks.
Paul Papadoulis, regular listener to the show, attendee of the watch parties. He said, Leafs and Oilers haven't won a cup with these drafted cores because they didn't build around the stars and have mediocre goaltending. So what he's really trying to say is, Alexei Medvedev, you've already got the hard part figured out. That's what I hear when I read that comment. Thank you for that, Paul. Walk. The Canucks rebuild, quote unquote, legit worked until the GM fumbled it with a trade. Other than Buffalo, every rebuild has led to consistent success. I don't know exactly which trade you're talking about. Feel free to clarify that as well, but I just want to keep reading. We got a few things. From the chat, Hamido Frog made a good point. Sabres' best players all left and won a cup elsewhere. Like, that has to count for something. Like, technically, the players that the Sabres were drafting at the top of the draft, all of those guys went and got it done. They just had to do it with other teams.
Also, the rising cap makes it harder to retool, in my mind, because you're seeing that fewer and fewer top players hitting free agency. You're seeing that teams are able to keep a lot of, pretty much the majority of their core players, because they aren't running into cap crunches and then having to trade all-star caliber players, right? The reason the Colorado Avalanche were able to pluck Devon Toews was because the Isles couldn't afford him in the flat cap era. They couldn't afford his next contract. That's why Buchnevich became available for the Blues. That's why Fiala became available for the LA Kings. In a world where the cap is skyrocketing, you're not even going to have Taves, Buchnevich, Fiala caliber players hitting the trade market because those teams are just going to be able to keep those players, meaning there's even more of an emphasis on your internal talent. What can you draft and develop? Because the Canucks should know this after trying to scour their trade market for a 2C. Yeah. They spent all summer trying to search for a 2C. Now, I actually applaud the fact that they didn't make a panic trade for Pavel Zacha, radically overpaying. But the reality is they are now in a spot where Lucas Reichel is their second line center.
Yep.
They should know that it's really hard to trade your way out of this or to just sign free agents and do it that way. And if you're then on top of that, trying to stay competitive and you're going to draft between 11th to 15th every year, well, then teams have the teams that are drafting ahead of you have a greater chance of landing the superstar talent that actually propels franchises forward.
On the other side of that, Rajcraft said, then isn't this the best time to rebuild since acquiring players is way harder with the rising cap? This is something that gets brought up all the time on the show, but especially by commenters is, well, if it's really hard to acquire players, like, wouldn't that mean it's a good time to be a seller? One of the very few sellers in the NHL? And the answer, I believe, is yes. Do you not agree?
Yeah, you're obviously going to have to wait a couple months to let things play out. Nothing's going to change in the meantime. Yep, right? There's no race to have to do it right now. But especially because of all the parity in the NHL right now, it's conducive for, if you're a selling team and you've got players that other teams want, the supply and demand forces are going to be in your favor because, I mean, look at the Metro Division as an example. The last place team in the Metro Division right now, it's the Washington Capitals at 8-1. And I watched them against the Panthers last night. They lost, but at 5-5, they legitimately look good. Like, that Metro team division is ridiculously stacked. The Eastern Conference as a whole, even the upstart teams in the Western Conference that are young. But again, you've got a couple months to know for sure that, all right, is this season a write-off or not? And then you can make those decisions, make those moves to sell. You're not going to lose anything. You're not going to have a fire sale in mid-November.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, when we talk about a rebuild, we're always saying, like, if Quinn Hughes doesn't want to resign. Rutherford's right also about this best case scenario. And people might not want to hear it right now because I know everyone's really mad at Jim Rutherford right now for the rebuild conversation. But he's absolutely right about what the best case scenario is that Canucks get healthy. Again, you can't count Filipino in that conversation. You just can't. But Canucks get healthy. They, like he said, stick with the priority of getting another center. Maybe prices come down and it's something they're happy with. Maybe it's David Kampf. They take a run at making the playoffs and they see where they're at. And like, if they go on some Cinderella run, great, good for them. That's great. That's probably the best course of action because, hey, it might mean Quinn Hughes stays. Now, if it doesn't mean Quinn Hughes stays, and I think this is the interesting part for me, is that Rutherford, when he was asked about trading for that center, he's like, we could do that and still miss the playoffs. Like, I think that's a really important piece of this Q&A that people are kind of glossing over is, yeah, they could pay heavy prices in trades. Yeah, I'll read the quote. IMAC asks, what do you do to the roster in the short term? And then he said, we could make changes, pay heavy prices in trades, and still not be a playoff team. Or we could stay the course, get back healthy, and still have a chance to make the playoffs. But we could also miss the playoffs doing that, right? We're in a very good draft year, and we've got to keep that in mind. Right now, as we speak, I would say we would stay the course with developing our young players and getting our injured players back in the lineup and continue to look for that center. We still really don't know what we've got because we haven't had a full lineup. Well, I disagree with the last point about you don't really know what you've got. I think you do for the most part. I also think the Canucks penalty kill will naturally get better even before Derek Forbort and Teddy Blueger come back. I think just because of how bad it's been, that it's going to get better. Like, they're going to figure some stuff out as the season goes along. And I know we all kind of looked at Marcus Pettersson, Derek Forbort getting healthy as kind of the catalyst of why the PK got so much better last year. But I also think there's something to be said about just getting more familiarized. And as the season goes along, just getting a little more comfortable. And I think with newer personnel on the PK, I think there's a chance that the Canucks PK naturally improves. And of course, they're also going to get Forbort and Bluger back as well. Now I'm getting a little off topic, but I liked what I heard from Rutherford when he talks about, the strong draft class, not wanting to pay heavy prices in trades because they still might miss the playoffs even if they get that center. Because it's like you and I have been saying for a while, Harm, like this Canucks team isn't just a second line center away from being a really good team.
For sure. And even the best case scenario of figuring things of you get healthy, you make the improbable run to making the playoffs. Would that be enough to sway Quinn Hughes to stay?
Yeah, exactly.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
You and I have spent how long talking about us not really seeing a path that's realistic for them contending for a Stanley Cup within the next 2-3 years. You don't think Quinn Hughes, who's a student of the game and is as smart a player as I've talked to in my career as a journalist, he
watches so much hockey.
100%. So even if they do make the playoffs, is that really on July 1st making him go, well, we made the playoffs, we snuck into 8th, and so and make him sign on the dotted line for an 8-year deal? I don't even know if that's enough.
Manure Dillon in the chat, he said, this team isn't Teddy Bluger and Derek Forbort away from the playoffs, brother. I like that comment. That's a good comment. Which is, again, that's why I disagree with the last part of what Jim's saying about we don't really know what we have because we haven't had a fully healthy lineup. Like, you're probably not going to get a fully healthy lineup with Philip Hedl, right? Like,
maybe not even with Thatcher Demko.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. If you're just joining us, Thatcher Demko officially placed on IR. We're talking about a Q&A interview with Jim Rutherford and Ian McIntyre of Sportsnet. You can read it at sportsnet.ca. All right. Is there any other quote from there that you wanted to read?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah. It says they're not going to trade chips like Willander, Pettersson, Elias Pettersson, that is, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, and Braden Coots says they're not going to do that. Yeah, and ultimately, I just kind of close out this conversation. I don't really have too much of a problem with what Jim said today. Like, I think people also need to give it the understanding and the context of he is the sitting president of hockey ops. We're 18 games into the season. They've had injuries. Like, he's not going to come out and declare that they're rebuilding. I think, I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to convince myself that everything's fine and everything's good.
It's a little bit of cope. I'm not gonna lie. Hearing this idea, and hey, things can change. But if they do go down the path of a world where Quinn Hughes doesn't want to stay and this organization still doesn't rebuild, you're gonna lose a lot of fans.
Okay, that's true.
A lot of fans.
The one thing I didn't like, well, not one thing, but the thing that really stuck with me that I didn't like, just to wrap up this conversation, is that totally leaves the door open for them to make a win now trade with Hughes. Like going to the route of Tkachuk, the Calgary trade. Let's go get our Mackenzie Weegar. Let's go get our Jonathan Huberdeau. We're going to be a team.
Yeah, and now imagine the alternative if the Flames had prioritized the future at that time.
And how good would they be? Like, how good would they be right now?
Yeah, and there is no... Quinn Hughes is a top 10 player in the NHL. You're not winning that trade. There is no path where you can stay as competitive, no matter what good player you think you might be getting in a return.
But like we said yesterday, you increase your chances of winning it if you go the route.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And, yeah. Okay.
Don't get anyone over the age of 25.
For sure. Yeah.
Like
I'd even say like 23.
Yeah.
Do you not agree? 23.
Yeah.
Like, don't get anyone over 23. All right. Anyone else? You ready for it?
Yeah.
Let's get to anyone else, which is a presentation of our friends at Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. Drive up to 72 kilometers on the battery alone, and then seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2025 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $99 weekly at 3.49% APR for 64 months with $3,600 down. And it includes a $3,000 discount. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. I wanted to say this right off the top. Our pal, our colleague, he's been on the show before. He's a really good dude. He covers the Canucks really, really well. Daniel Wagner sharing today on social media, literally 10 minutes before the show went live. So didn't really prepare much, but I just wanted to at least say that Daniel sharing that Vancouver is awesome, his former publication, no longer wishes to have Canucks coverage on the website, and that Wags is immediately out of a job. I feel so bad for Daniel Wagner. He is such a good dude. Often the guy I sit next to in the press box, really thoughtful person, not only in like life and how he acts as a friend and a colleague, but with his coverage of the team. Nobody covers the Canucks like Daniel Wagner. He's got a really unique flavor to his coverage, and it's different than what anyone else is doing. And I think that's so important in our business, is to be different. And Daniel does such a good job of it. And I'm absolutely gutted for him. That really, really sucks. I hate it.
He's been a huge voice in this market for so long. I'm sure he's going to bounce back. He's so talented. Like you said, he's a great dude as well. And I am looking forward to seeing what comes next, because I'm sure he's going to land back on his feet.
Jacob's going to drop it in the chat, but Daniel has started a Substack. So for those that don't know, Substack, you do a monthly subscription. I don't know what the cost is. But go to Daniel's Substack. Check it out. Like I said, we planned this 10 minutes before the show, but please check out Daniel's Substack. Pass it to Bulis, which, that's the name of the blog, .substack.com. Go there, support Daniel, support local journalism. Like, folks, here's the other thing. And I'm not trying to get on a soapbox and make this about us at all, but people of our show seem to really understand it, and I appreciate everybody that supports Canucks Army, supports us. But like, you're noticing less and less individual local media, non-team, non-rights holder media on the road, and this is a continuation of it. Is if you don't support local, if you don't support the local journalists, this is what's going to happen. And you're going to see even less people on the road than there currently is. So support local journalism if you like your Canucks content. From Daniel, if you read I Watched This Game, which who hasn't really, go subscribe to the Substack. It's my understanding that that's what's going to be on there. Go support it. Yeah, it's important. It's important that people support it. So send in love to Daniel. And I hope people do subscribe to his Substack.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. 2 days in a row, I've set myself up for just awful transitions. There's no way to transition away from that. But I did want to talk about last night's slate of games. I was watching the Sharks game, Sharks versus Flames. Flames hung on to win. Good news for Team Tank that the Flames won last night. Dustin Wolf picks up the shutout, but the Sharks didn't really mount too much of a effort. But what I did notice in that game was just that, like, Macklin Celebrini, he tilts the ice in the Sharks' favor. He's such a smart player, and like even his back pressure, like to get the puck back in his team's favor, is crazy. Like, it's ridiculous to watch him play. He's so good. He's so good. And honestly, I think he might be a little bit underrated. Now, I always think back to when you were telling me when he was in college, like, dude, this guy's really good. I was like, nope. No,
should have listened to me when he was playing in college and wasn't even drafted.
I should have.
The youngest player in college hockey was putting up video game like point totals, and on top of that, you watch him play and thought, this guy's defensive game is Patrice Bergeron, Jonathan Taves level.
He plays the game like he's been in the league for 10 years, man.
The comp that someone gave me who works for an NHL team before Celebrini was drafted and before the recent hype, right? This is before what he's done this year. This is before what he did as an 18-year-old rookie last year. The comp someone gave me was he's like a slightly poor man's version of Sidney Crosby. Like that's that style of player where he's so good at everything. It's not just that he's an offensive game breaker, but how good he is on faceoffs, board battles, winning pucks down low, the attention to detail defensively, the compete level, bodying guys physically despite being so young. He's just an all-around franchise 1C in the stylistic way Sid was. Now, not comparing Celebrini to Crosby in terms of Crosby's 101. He's a generational talent, and Celebrini's not there yet. But that comp stylistically was thrown around even before Celebrini was drafted.
That's a good comp. Like, he's really good. It's only, again, everything I've seen from this season, and talk about teams I've watched a lot of Sharks games this year. They're really fun to watch. Those California teams are really fun to watch this year. It only kind of hammers home the take we were talking about the other day about how you have to bring Celebrini to the Olympics. Like, at this point, it's not even an option. Like, he has to be on that team. We have a lot of future Canuck, Macklin Celebrini, going on in the chat. Hey, you go through some pain now, and the team's on the up and up. You need that star center, and it's so hard to go get top of the line guys. You got oodles of cap space, and Celebrini hits free agency at the same time as Bedard, and they say, you know what? I'd love to go play for the Canucks. It's all part of Jim Rutherford's plan.
That's why they're not rebuilding. They know who's on the horizon.
That's right. You talk about cope. I like that you called it out that I was coping. I was coping for sure. Thank you for keeping me grounded, Harm. Okay, let's see what else we had in the chat. Oh yeah, okay. I got a chance to listen to the Wingmen podcast.
I haven't had a chance to listen to it. Would you recommend or no?
Yeah, like they're nervous. They're getting started, which is fine. We've all had to do it, and those guys, they're all. It's fine. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I believe in it. But what really cracked me up was the intro where Matthew calls himself the more handsome Tkachuk brother. He calls Brady this mutant. He's like, this mutant I'm talking to. And then Brady doesn't even like push back. He just like introduces himself. He's like, and I'm that mutant, Brady Tkachuk. Like, you need to listen to it. It's quite funny. And it got me thinking, like, does Brady Tkachuk know about the giant baby?
Probably not from our show.
No, not from our show, but
that
was something that was on hockey Twitter. That wasn't just our show that started it. We read a tweet about it, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, maybe. Matthew Tkachuk's online on Twitter. He's active there. If it blew up, I'm sure Matthew sent it to Brady at some point.
They've got to have a write-in segment, and I'm sure there's going to be some overlap. There's going to be some Canucks Convo listeners that listen to Wingmen. We need some people to just start being like, have you heard of the giant baby comparison? And send them the photo. And Jacob, bring up the giant baby. People in the chat are already saying, pull up the giant baby. It's been a while. It's been a minute. The giant baby.
You know what? I did this on a Friday when the organization's outlook is a little bit bleak. I needed the giant baby. I need this last day.
Yeah, we're summoning the giant baby. Jacob did not know that was coming today, so that's going to take him a second, but he'll get it. Where was it? Yeah, okay, so the Big Hog Hockey said that podcast reminds me of the Kelsey's podcast, the Kelsey Bros. Same management company. It's Wave Sports and Entertainment. They're the ones behind it. There's the giant baby. And there's people in the chat that are saying, I need to see this giant baby. They don't know what we're talking about. We think this giant baby looks like Brady Tkachuk. We saw this on Twitter, and yeah, this giant. I was Googling this giant baby. I'll tell you about this, okay? I was recently Googling about the giant baby because I was trying to find a photo of it again just to make myself laugh. And apparently the mother of this quote-unquote giant baby responded to some backlash and was saying like, hey, I need the haters to go away. My 3-year-old son is perfectly healthy. And I was like, hey, fair enough. I wouldn't have guessed that this kid is 3. But that is a giant looking baby. That's a giant Okay, I'm sorry. What's the cutoff age? I know none of us have kids, but if your kid's 3, your kid's wearing clothes, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
It should be.
Yeah. So anyway.
That did not look Wait, so you're telling me the giant baby in that
Yeah,
photo is supposedly
the
3
giant
years
baby
old?
is like a healthy 3-year-old toddler, apparently.
It should be. Well, I don't even want to say in my opinion because not a parent. I feel like, but I think at 3, you should be wearing some clothes.
Yeah, like why are you putting that on the internet? I don't know. Like what did you expect? First day on the internet? I've been finding myself saying this a lot to people. Like there's a few people that are really upset about the Canucks Army comment section because it does swing fairly negative. Like people are upset about the state of the team. Newsflash. And people are like, you gotta ban all these people. And I'm like, it's the internet. Just block them. If you don't like what they have to say, just block them. I'm not gonna get on the Canucks Army comment section soapbox right now, but I don't know, man. I
Imagine
don't
being
like
that
this.
kid at like
Yeah.
10 years old though,
Mm,
knowing that this photo of you went viral.
mm. Yeah.
That'd be pretty hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. Jake Fraser in the chat, our fill-in producer from the other day, he said, my son's 2 months old and is wearing clothes. There you go. You're wearing clothes at that age. Mark said, I hope the giant baby has a no movement clause. All right. People, okay, it's good we brought up the giant baby again, because I think when we bring it up, people were thinking we were calling Brady Tkachuk a giant baby, which is not what we were doing. We were saying the giant baby looks like Brady Tkachuk, or that Brady Tkachuk looks like the giant baby. Did I explain that well?
Yeah, there's just for people on podcasts, there's a photo of a giant baby online that's gone viral that has a striking similarity to Brady Tkachuk.
So if you Google the words giant baby, you will see a few and you go images, you'll see a few babies. Just scroll till you see the one that looks like Brady Tkachuk. Like you'll see it quickly. You'll see it very, very quickly. Anyways, yeah, there's the giant baby again. Okay, we're going with Jacob Fuller. Okay. For those on podcast, Jacob's flashing the giant baby on the screen and then photos of Brady Tkachuk on the screen as well. All right. So yeah, shout out to the Tkachuk brothers. That was what this was supposed to be, was Wingman. It was a good first episode. I enjoyed it. Okay. Anything else you want to get to?
No, I think I'm good.
Great. Canucks, Hurricanes today, 4:00 Pacific. Don't miss it. The NHL slate is pretty quiet. Other than that, just 2 other games. We're going to go for our Bet365 bet of the day. We're going to go with Rick Tockett's Philadelphia Flyers. They are road underdogs at plus 115 odds. I am taking that. Give me that. Flyers money line plus 115 odds. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, we will close it out there. For my co-host, Harman Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar. My name is Dave Woodrelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.